Hi, welcome back. In this session today, we're going to be talking about students in missions. I'm Miranda, and this is Ron.
I am Ron all day long.
Hey, so Ron, why don't you tell us what is the actual importance of missions in regards to university student ministry?
Well, I think first you kind of have to start with just what the Bible says to us about missions in general, because really post-salvation, all of us as God followers have a responsibility to see, I think, our world, whatever our world is, as a mission field. You think about what Jesus said in Mark 16:15 when he said, "Go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation." I mean, what an inclusive sentence that is in terms of calling. So, I mean, he didn't say go into, some small space and share something sort of important with a few people,
right?
But he said go into the whole world. That's big. And share the gospel, the most important thing or message that anyone ever shared with anyone, and share that with everyone.
Yeah.
And I think for us, in terms of the university campus, not only is it because that's our space, if you're a student, right, or a student leader, but it is a really strategic place because from the university, we believe we have an opportunity to impact the entire world. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we hear the Great Commission and we hear go into all the world, we get a little bit timid at first and think, man, I can't engage the entire world. But it's about engaging your world where you are right now in this moment.
Sure. And I think not only as students, but as student leaders, when we start to look at who is around us, we'll recognize really quickly that it's a strategic mission field on every level. When you consider the demographic, you'll see that the university student is at a point in their lives when they are open to ideas, and even the university by its very concept is a place for an idea exchange. And so it's a great space really to present truth. Not only that, it's a season in folks' lives when they're making decisions about their futures. And then of course beyond that, when you look at that demographic, man, you got people from every part of life, and even from different places on the globe or on the planet. In the case of South Africa, certainly we have an opportunity to reach the continent. There are so many universities and so many students from countries all across southern Africa that study in South Africa. It is an incredibly strategic mission field.
And I think for you and I, we see that, and even for our leaders, they're starting to see that. So then I think it's our job to help students see that. For them to see that, man, right where you are, where you're planted in this moment, this is your current mission field. And I think that then helps prepare them for life, to know wherever I land, wherever I go, where I am is my mission field. I don't have to necessarily board a plane. Maybe I just need to walk across the hallway, or I need to engage the student sitting next to me in class. I need to maybe cross some cultural boundaries on my campus, but my mission field is where I am, and we need to help our students see that.
Absolutely. It's a cool thing to get to do, too, because, again, I think the university student is very not only influential, but also easy to influence in regards to that, because there's plenty of space in the life of a university student to catch vision, to recognize purpose. And so we have an opportunity in that season to really set the bar.
Absolutely.
And to set it high, because come on, a lot of times as we get older, we sort of settle into a space that is so much less in terms of mission than what God ever meant for us. Again, back to His calling to us, go into the whole world, proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. And to have a university student embrace that at that point in their lives can change the trajectory of their life as a God follower and person of impact, whether that is in this season for sure at the university, but also later, in the marketplace and in the world.
And I think sometimes because like you said, we settle as we get older, and so then we can kind of put the lid on it for students. But it's not about us putting the lid on it. It's actually opening the doors for students to see that and allow them to rise to the challenge. Allow them to look at it and decide, what can I do? There was a statement that we were talking about earlier that it's not if we do missions, but when we do missions. It's taking the if factor out of that and actually putting together a plan and seeing that things are possible. It's just shifting a little bit of the mindset and engaging and moving forward.
Yeah, I'm believing that not even just if, but then it's kind of incumbent on us then to help. Maybe first it starts with us to understand how, but then also to communicate the how. And I, like you and I were talking earlier about a quote from a friend of ours here in the States, Scott Martin, who's the national director for university ministry that we've worked with historically in the States. But he actually said, we can do this if we will.
Yeah.
And Paul said that. Paul said, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So I think we first have to raise the bar for ourselves and say, you know what, we can do this.
Yeah.
We can have an impact in the lives of students, student leader, church leader, whomever you are watching this video right now. Understand that you have a grand opportunity to make an impact and to help others believe that they can as well. And to do that on purpose, strategically, to look at that campus as a mission field.
Another quote from our friend Scott that we mentioned a minute ago that I've heard him say many times with university students is, every student goes, every student gives, every student prays. As you talk about being intentional, every student should be intentional. I mean, every person, when we're talking Great Commission, needs to be intentional in the way that they live. But we really want to mobilize our students so that every student is going, every student is giving, every student is praying. So maybe that means that, man, right now I'm not in a position to go, but maybe I can give and I can pray and eventually work in the go as well.
Right, and I would just add to that we all can go if we think of go as our local. And so go starts here.
Yeah.
I believe that that's true no matter how globally minded you might be. And to communicate that again to your student, that go starts here. And in fact, for someone who's taken a lot of students on global missions trips, I would always say that to them, look, if you will get busy going across the hall or across the street or across the campus, I'll take you across the ocean. There's sort of, I think, a sense of faithful that starts with whatever's in front of us. My only concern with saying that way is that somehow makes the local seem less significant. And in fact, I would say it's quite the opposite. That as much as we're called to go globally, we are first and foremost called to live in our own context impactfully.
Yeah.
That's what seeing the campus as a mission field is really all about for us.
Yeah. And I've heard it said that, we don't have a large campus ministry, or we don't transform the world because we have a large campus ministry. We
transform the world because, or rather, the student ministry grows large because we catch a vision for transforming the world.
Yes, that's
or
what
in this case, our campus. I knew what she was trying to say.
He's got it.
No, and that's absolutely true. I mean, it would in fact be counterintuitive to the way that the gospel works to think that our motive for reaching people would be so we could grow our campus group. But in fact, our campus group will grow when we catch a vision for growing the kingdom and for reaching lost people.
Yeah.
And that's how Jesus wanted it.
Yeah.
That's how Jesus wants it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly where it was. It just got kind of stuck in my brain for a second.
I was just going to say, but there are some really practical or pragmatic ways to look at the campus as a mission field. So we've been talking for the last 7 or 8 minutes about a vision for seeing the campus as a mission field. But practically, you can actually choose to do things and even to see things, or maybe more importantly, to see people in a way that will make you impactful on campus, to see cross-cultural opportunities, to see places, literally even physical places, but more kind of spiritual realities on your campus that give you an opportunity, afford you an opportunity to impact people. Whether that's a res that you see, you're like, wow, this res really, needs God, or needs God to show up, or here's a department that we want to have an impact in, or, wow, we recognize that on our campus, and I know a lot of the campuses in South Africa, so do you, there are incredible international populations. For all that's been an issue in South Africa, I don't think there's a better place to vision a way to impact or have a positive impact in relationship to those issues than the university campus. But you have to see it that way.
Yeah.
So here's a people group that we could care about.
Absolutely.
We could be intentional about that.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, that was a big vision casting.
Yeah, no. So let's unpack that practically a little bit. So again, we've talked the overarching thing, why missions are so important to university student ministry. So we want to be intentionally missional on our campus. Because again, it starts where we are.
Sure.
So let's get strategic, intentional, missional at our university. So let's look at some ways that we can do that.
Sure.
I've heard it said that missions is when you're crossing a boundary to reach someone else or to reach a people group. And even though the mission or the campus is our home, there are some boundaries still for us to be able to cross to engage. So one you mentioned is, let's say we wanted to target a res.
Right.
What are some ways that you've seen that done, and what are some things that we can incorporate to be missional in a res setting?
Well, and we've talked about this in the context of this video series and teaching, but prayer is always the right place to start. So if you're targeting a particular res, I would say start by praying for that res. Make that a part of your leadership meetings and gatherings, and just say, you know what, we're really going to pray for this, and that God's going to give us some insight. And then you start with some doable goals. Maybe you set out with saying, wow, at the beginning of this next session, we're going to do a BRI specifically in the area of that res, because it will be a lot more likely to draw students from the res if it's near the res.
Yeah.
And you might say, well, this is a great place. We need some students to say, you know what, I will move into that res. I'm going to move in there.
How strategic.
And that's going to, come on now, that's going to be my place. I'm going to lead a life group or a cell group in that res, and just start working it from the inside out. What won't work is just rocking up and putting some posters and asking someone to come somewhere else. But go. Jesus said, go into all the world.
Yeah.
He said, compel them to come in, and that just putting up a few posters doesn't really qualify. Throwing some adverts on the bulletin boards and going to get this done. But having people who will intentionally set themselves up for relationship in the res.
Yeah. And I think when we see that as our mission field, we're willing to make maybe some of those sacrifices of, I will show up every single Tuesday and knock on some doors and invite people to come. Or, you know what, next semester, next year, I'm going to move into a res and invite some of my friends to come and move in with me, so that we can plant ourselves.
Be there to help other people move into that
field.
res.
Yeah.
Again, target small spaces, and you'll have a grand opportunity to make a big impact.
Yeah. So that's a physical maybe boundary that we can cross. Mm-hmm. There are some not physical boundaries that we can cross as well, but some cultural boundaries.
Sure.
And so some of those would include that we're reaching international students. Mm-hmm. Some of those would include that really we're just being strategic about diversity. So maybe that's racial diversity. Maybe it is the international diversity. It's also African diversity. Because I think sometimes when we say international, we're just thinking over an ocean.
Sure.
But really international would include our entire continent of Africa.
Absolutely. And even in South Africa, when you think about all the cultures that exist, even in that one nation, in this one nation.
So much diversity.
Sheesh, I'm saying it's an amazing opportunity. And that's true for us too. I don't care where you are. Again, watching this video, there are people around you that are different than you, that think different than you, that have a different history than you. And Jesus knew that when he said in Acts 1:8, and you will receive power after the Holy Spirit comes on you, because we need the Holy Spirit to show up to make this happen. And you will be my witnesses. Not you might, but you will. So if the Holy Spirit's at work in your life, man, you're going to reflect who Jesus is in your world. But then he gave us some really specific and strategic instruction. He said in Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria.
Yeah.
And for us, I really think our Samaria, and this was certainly true in Jesus' day, when he said Samaria, when he threw that into that sentence just before the ascension, the Samaritans were some of the least connected to the house of Israel, right?
Yeah.
And Jesus said, he just threw them into the top 4. In fact, after that, he said the uttermost parts of the earth. But Samaria is our cross-cultural too, and Samaria is right there on your campus. It's on our campuses.
And I think too often when we think cross-cultural diversity, we automatically go skin color.
Right.
Or we automatically go, they're holding a different passport or a different cultural background. But there's also socioeconomic background differences. There's people that maybe their native language is not our native language.
Right.
And if we're looking to really cross boundaries and reach people, diversity encompasses so many things. I once read a book, and there was a quote from it that I absolutely loved. It said, "Heaven will be a multicultural mosaic."
Yeah.
And I think if we really are striving to look like heaven, or we're really trying to build a diverse ministry here on campus, here in South Africa, that's what it's going to look like. It's a multicultural mosaic, and it should have room and space for everyone, no matter what the background may be.
And here's a question I would like to have an answer to if I ever come to see you on your campus. I would like to be able to say, and I know this could be true for you too, Miranda, you're more likely to get to them before me, but I would like to be able to say who's on your campus.
Yeah.
What is the makeup of your campus? Everything, again, from socioeconomic to international diversity, even just where they come from. If you're at KZN in Maritzburg, did most of your students come from Durban? Do they come from the Eastern Cape? Where do they come from? KwaZulu-Natal? I'm sure that's true. But do you know that? And if you have international students, where do they come from?
Yeah.
It's really hard to be strategic about reaching people if you don't know
who they are,
or where they came from. And you know, they say that you almost always miss the target if you don't know what the target is.
That's good. If you don't know what where you're aiming for,
Yeah.
you're likely to not get there. So we've explored now also being missional in the university campus, but we also want to expose our students to being missional outside of campus, kind of setting them up for a missional lifestyle.
Sure.
So what are some ways that you've experienced or that you would suggest for us to then engage and be missional outside of the university as well with our students?
That's such a fun question
It
for me
is.
to answer in the context of this video, because the original reason that I actually traveled to South Africa was because university student ministry we were involved in the States was so engaged in living on mission beyond our campus.
Yeah.
And so we started taking groups of students to South Africa. Many of you have met some of our students in that.
I was one of those
Yeah,
students.
that's exactly correct. But just seeing the opportunity, again, especially as church leaders and as student ministry leaders, the opportunity we have to set the missional trajectory of our students, our university students, for the rest of their lives in terms of burden and a vision for mission. So I would say that's kind of my first response to that, and it's probably not an answer to your question, but it's kind of a vision that comes out of me, because I know that from that season people can catch that vision that you mentioned a minute ago, not only to go but also to give and to pray. But we do that practically, I think, by again identifying targets. So in Southern Africa there are all kinds of opportunities to partner with the local church, right? Your own churches. A grand opportunity to incorporate students into the vision for mission, whether that's in South Africa or to travel into Zambia and be a part of the Zambia project.
Yeah.
And there are missional opportunities there. I know also in Swaziland or Mozambique there are some opportunities.
Yeah, there's a Life Child project in Mozambique. Huge opportunities to partner with them as well.
Sheesh. I mean, I know a lot's happening through ALG Group in
Lesotho as well.
Sorry, that's what I was trying to say. So there are lots of opportunities, and I think it's a shame if we don't point our students toward mission in Southern Africa.
Yeah.
That's just got to happen.
For me personally, I think one of the greatest things of taking our students outside of their context is it broadens their perspective of God.
Sure.
And all of a sudden you get this bigger picture, and it impacts you as well as you're helping. And so we can partner with AOG projects in Southern African countries. We can look at going internationally.
Sure.
There are also partners and projects domestic that we can do. We don't even have to leave our borders or our country.
True. You don't even have to leave your city.
No, not at all.
There are tremendous opportunities that are outside of the campus that qualify as moving those students into mission beyond the campus. That again will be a blessing not only to those local mission, but also to those students in terms of what will be sown into their lives and their hearts for how they'll live that out later. And then also just for those local nonprofits.
Yeah,
I mean, these are legit missions and ministries that are happening that could use a push. And we can give it.
And some manpower, some hands,
That's what I'm saying.
There's some great social justice and education projects.
Sure.
Our Preferred Future office.
Absolutely.
Which, shout out to Preferred Future, the social justice and education and missions arm of the Assemblies of God group. Their office is great with partnering people and groups to projects to be able to serve. So that's another way that we can do that. Also, a fun thing that I've seen is take your student group when you're on a VAC or a holiday and find what other student group isn't on VAC. And just go and serve. Do some outreach on their campus for a few days. And the partnerships that build there, the vision that comes out of that.
Man, there's even some cross-pollination.
Incredible.
Right, yeah, like you say, vision. And it's impactful coming and going.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. There's tons of opportunities. Again, it's not the if, but it's the when. It's not...
And we can help with the how.
Yes.
I mean, it's incumbent on leadership to help those students figure out where they can be and how they can walk and work impactfully in mission. Even think about some of those students that are going to have internships that they need to do. Man, you're your lifers. That sometimes can be in your church, man. That these are students that just even because of their degree programs are going to need to serve, and we can help point them to places of impact that are also connected directly to the church and the kingdom.
We can change the trajectory of people's lives, the trajectory of eternity for them as well. What a cool opportunity. So students in missions, absolutely crucial, vital. We need to make sure that not only are we helping them understand their mission field right now at the university, helping them be missional at the university, and then also exposing them to opportunities to be missional beyond the university. So no matter what campus you're on, no matter where you're at, no matter what level you feel like your ministry is at, we need to make sure that we're incorporating missions, understanding that, and explaining it to our students and helping them to really put that into their hearts as they're moving forward in their
because
relationship.
students in missions will eventually become God followers on mission.
Yeah, for the rest of their lives. We're not trying to make just good university student ministry members, but we are trying to disciple and make lifelong followers of Jesus that will walk them from this life into the next.
True
Students
story.
in missions, it's important. Make sure you're putting it out there.
Yeah.